At 8 seconds, the average attention span of adults is less than that of a goldfish. How many of you were thinking of somebody? Maybe they were thinking of you. It's challenging to get people's attention. We've been looking at this screen for a couple of weeks, and all the inputs and all the stimulation that comes, all the videos and online things that we're involved in, there's so much competition for our attention. It makes it challenging for churches, and we look at the amount of time people are willing to invest in this and that. We talked with someone between services about binging TV shows again, and the time that we spend to those things that capture our attention. The Nielsen Company says that adults, I really can't believe this, adults spend an average of 11 hours a day interacting with media in some fashion. Their phone, their tablet, their computer, or their television. Of those 11 hours, those in the 18 to 34 age group spend 26% of it on television. Those in the 50 to 64 year age group spend 60% on television. I'm above that, and I'm not going to tell you what the percentage is for me. But we spend a lot of time with things that capture our attention. And as churches, there are barriers for us to be able to engage community. And it's really more than capturing attention, but engagement is to provoke new and prolonged interest and participation. It's being involved in interacting with other people, events, and expectations. I've shared in recent weeks about the decline of church membership and the challenge of churches to engage people. And I'm not so much interested this morning about engaging in this place, but as a body of believers, how are we engaging with our neighbor, with our coworker, with people in the community of need? Why are so many people not engaged in church? Author Charles Gilkey from the University of Chicago said this: "The theory of some radical Protestants seems to be that while religion may last, the church has outlived its usefulness." Dr. Gilkey wrote this in January of 1914. Some things never change. But getting people's attention is a challenge, but there are more social dilemmas that we deal with in our community. We deal with the dilemma of diversity. It's a dilemma because it creates segmentation. It creates areas where we're divided or we're kind of separated. I looked at the demographics for the Louisville area and found a few things of interest. 90% of the people in Louisville speak English. 4% speak Spanish, and 3% speak Indo-European languages. The racial diversity breaks down like this: 70% are white, 24% black, and 3% Asian. Religious diversity is there. We've shared about the different denominations and Roman Catholics and Muslims and others. At least 60% of the population report to have some religious affiliation. The ages break down like this. Those 21 to 65 make up 57% of the population, and above 65 are 15%. The sex and gender diversity: 47% of the population are men, 53% women. 4.5% of the percentage of population claim to be LGBTQ. So those are sort of built-in kind of differences and distinctions. But there are other things that make us unique and different. There are characteristics that can be identified that cause us to be differentiated from the coworker next to us or the person across the street. One HR department in a company listed all of these different categories of where people can differ one from the other. Some people have cognitive disabilities. Some people have physical abilities and disabilities. The mental health issues, neurodiversity, behavior and ethodiversity, personality and thought style, cultural background, geographical location, language and linguistics and accents, ethnicity, race, citizenship status, age, family and upbringing, ideologies, morals, social roles, gender identity, gender expression, sex, sexual orientation, education, income, socioeconomic status, life experiences, privilege, marital status, parental status, military experience, criminal background, political beliefs, religious and spiritual beliefs, work experiences, and skills. I thought, man, that's a crazy long list. But then I would look at each one of those individually and say, yes, my life experiences are different than yours. I've lived in the South, and that accent of the South that I was around, and I even adopted that for a while living there, and we pick up those accents, and I'm different than you. In many ways, you're different than the next person. So we have these differences individually. So when I talk about engaging community, I'm not thinking about groups. I'm thinking about one by one. That dilemma of diversity is not going to be overcome by just attracting a whole segment of people or a whole cultural group or a whole distinctive group with certain interests. It happens one by one. I suspect that if we were to take an opinion poll of this group and almost anyone that goes to church or some kind of event, not church, just any kind of event, very few people came into that event because of a sign they saw on the road or because of some blurb they saw on Facebook. We come because somebody invited us. We know someone. Overcoming diversity, engaging with community over the diversity issue happens one person at a time, one person, then another, and another, and another. Let's look at a passage of Scripture that illustrates this. As Jesus was on his way, the crowds almost crushed him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years, but no one could heal her. She came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. "Who touched me?" Jesus asked. When they all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the people are crowding and pressing against you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me. I know that power has gone out from me." Then the woman, seeing that she could not go unnoticed, came trembling and fell at his feet. In the presence of all the people, she told why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. Then he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." When Jesus encountered this woman, it was one person at a time. It was one person, and then the next, and the next. Think of the people he healed. The man who was crippled at the pool of Siloam. The man who had been born blind, and he was told to go put mud on his eyes and he would see. Jesus called out children. He singled out Nicodemus, one by one by one. He was crammed around that day with all kinds of people, but he dealt with one person that touched him, even though many had. That's part of the challenge that we have, is that one by one. The division, they have the dilemma of diversity. We also have that dilemma of division. We're divided. We're going to move from sort of diversity to division and on down the track of how we get segmented as a group and as a community. That dilemma of division. Political, social, racial. Divisions where we are segmented and we align ourselves around certain things. In the year 1933, beginning with the New Deal, the government formed the Home Owners Lending Corporation, HOLC. They were going to help people buy homes, but they had 4 different levels of criteria. The first level was, in this part of that town, where those homes are, they're a great prospect to lend money to people who are worthy of that, to buy those homes. Then there was a second level, almost as good. The third level wasn't quite so good and a little sketchy. Then there was a fourth category that said, no way. Look at this map from 1937. This is Louisville. You see the blue? That's the prime property areas to lend money for homes. The green, next. The yellow, not so much. And the red, absolutely not. This map was given to banks and lending institutions. Look at the red. What areas are those of Louisville today? They look familiar? decade by decade by decade, the challenge to overcome some of the divisions that have been instituted by the government, by people, by just the way people live and act. It's such a challenge. We want to align ourselves with this leader or that, pick this team or pick that team. Jesus addressed it in the church at Corinth. He said, "Some from Chloe's household have informed me that there are quarrels among you." What I mean is this: one of you says, "I follow Paul," another, "I follow Apollos," another, "I follow Cephas," and still another, "I follow Christ." Wow. What are we to do about those divisions, those alignments? We can't overcome those. We can't change those. Some of those are built in. But to challenge that dilemma of division, we need to engage around common goals and common concerns. One mother to one mother, one father to father, co-worker to co-worker, one person at a time, but engage around common goals, not try to undo all the division that's taken place. Some of the things that stand in the way of that, I think, is people don't feel valued. They look at the other group looking at them, or that group on the other side of that line, and they're concerned about being valued. Well, we can take the step to value them first. Some people share that they're not respected. We can respect them first. Some people don't feel listened to. We can listen first. Author Sharon Mcmahon, I shared a quote from her a few weeks ago. She was talking about the recent years when it's been so challenging to engage anyone in a way of listening and exchanging ideas and thoughts. Even families were polarized so much that you couldn't bring up a subject because no one was listening much. We were just trying to persuade each other, or we felt like we were trying to be persuaded by the other. She says, wouldn't it be great if people could come together and agree on the front end, we're going to spend time just trying to understand. And she said a great line. She said, listening to understand doesn't obligate you to agree. I can sit and listen to the other person all day long and not feel obligated to agree with them. And they can do the same with me. Next is the dilemma of distrust. We've talked about diversity and division, but distrust is that sort of progressive line where by groups and by individuals we find an inability to trust the other. There's always doubt, always suspicion, what the agenda is and what's in it for that person. It makes people afraid of being open and receptive. That distrust is a powerful thing. And ultimately, people sort of become self-protective. They don't want to be involved. They don't want to open themselves up to that possibility. Well, I think we cracked through that dilemma of distrust by simply trusting others first, showing that we trust them. It sounds simple, but we know it's not easy. A lot of times the distrust has come because there's been failure after failure after failure. Breakdown of relationships, breakdown of trust, again and again and again. It comes from a pattern. We're sort of on a tightrope of not knowing if my hand's I reach out my hand, am I going to be held safely? We're going to look at a movie clip from one of the greatest movies of all time, Despicable Me.
Okay, close. You're going to have to jump.
Jump? Are you insane?
Don't worry, I will catch you.
You gave us back.
I know, and it is the worst mistake I ever made. But you have to jump now.
It'll be okay.
Okay, close.
Jump now.
Margot, I will catch you, and I will never let you go again. I'm coming, Margot. Hang on. I got you.
You want to watch the rest of it, don't you? The minions are my favorite. That's what trust feels like sometimes. Walking a tightrope. Am I going to be caught, or am I going to fall? Some kind of pain or hurt. That dilemma of distrust from others. We can extend trust. We can reach out that hand and make sure that the trust is there in that relationship. Well, we have the dilemma of diversity and division and distrust. There's a harder one. It's the dilemma of disillusionment. Those people whose lives have progressed to the point, one thing after another, where they're waiting for that last domino to fall. One by one. Death by death, illness by illness, financial disaster by financial disaster, item after item, that last domino may fall. Disillusionment is that point when you realize that what you believed in, what you cherished or hoped for, seems lost or is actually lost. There was a 2008 movie called Revolutionary Road starring Leo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet as Frank and April Wheeler. It starts off with their great relationship and job and marriage, and things are progressing scene by scene by scene. Breakdown after breakdown. Conflict, broken trust, all the way scene by scene to where disillusionment finally sets in. For that disillusionment, for those people in our community who have that dilemma of disillusionment, we can break through that by engaging with hope. Hope is a tangible thing. It's something that is real. Even though we can't see it, it makes a difference. Dietrich is an author who was born in the South, and he writes sort of with that Southern bent, but very, very insightful. One of his posts, he was responded to, or one of the readers wrote him a letter, and he responded to it. Let me share this story. He says, "You wrote to me from the ICU waiting room at 1:37 a.m. this morning. In your email, you told me about your daughter fighting to stay alive. You told me that you were a mess. You said you needed a smile. Then you finished by asking a simple question. You asked what I believe hope is, and you spelled it with a capital H. Normally, I wouldn't answer a question like this because I think we can all agree I ain't a very smart guy. In fact, I'm a putz. But you seem desperate. So if my mediocre, half-cocked words can give you a few moments of calm, then, well, words you shall have. So hope, capital H. I submit for this column that we pretend hope is not merely a four-letter word or a positive feeling. Let's make hope tangible, a three-dimensional object. That way we can hold it, touch it. Let's say that hope, capital H, is actually a 1-pound shaker of arts and craft glitter. Have you ever fooled around with glitter? It's messy stuff. Glitter is a clean freak's nightmare. Any second-grade teacher will tell you that glitter is a communicable disease. Yesterday, for instance, my wife visited my cousin's kids' playroom where unsupervised children were playing with illegal quantities of glitter. Their sparkly hands touched my wife, who in turn touched me, and that was all it took. Currently, there are stubborn pieces of glitter in my teeth, on my keyboard, and in my eye sockets. There will be glitter in my casket, I'm sure. Because you can't end glitter. You can't fight it. You can't eradicate it. Try washing your hands and glitter will laugh at you. Hope is like glitter. It doesn't take much, but it really hangs on. We need to bring hope to dispel that disillusionment, to break through it. How the world needs hope, and we can do that. We talked about all those dilemmas: diversity, division, distrust, and disillusionment, and the ways we can engage. But I also think we need to sort of pull back and say, how do we get started? What do we do? And I think we need a focused direction, a deliberate purpose to move forward. We engage with people about the present and the future. The past is past. It hangs on. It has influence. It has impact. We all have stories. But we can't engage with people one by one about the past. We can engage them about now and next. John chapter 8. Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. At dawn, he appeared again in the temple courts where all the people gathered around him. And he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now, what do you say?" Well, they were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning, he straightened up and said to them, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." Again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left, with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and leave your life of sin." The past is the past. The present and the future is where we can engage. The present and the future is what Christ is about in our lives and the lives of those with whom we engage. I ran across this quote: "The present and future aren't so much clean slates as they are opportunities to plant new life in soil enriched by our struggles and saturated with the tears of our joys and failures." Communities, dilemma, trying to engage. The heartache is there. The struggles are there. We have it right here in Louisville. But we're also watching it tragically in the Middle East. Communities at war. Somehow people have tried to say, if we could just start with the present and about the future and let go of the past. But it's gone on forever. And it may well go on forever over there. Well, our community is not that. We have a few social dilemmas and differences and ways that we can engage one by one, person by person. We're able to do that. It's not hopeless. We have opportunity. What we do in Louisville is not nearly as hard as what's going on in the Middle East. But I think it's really important.